or what is the new Earth or new humanity that is coming?
The planet is changing so fast right now, and we're literally going into the next era of the human species.
Are there signs that we can see in 2024 or beyond where we can go, I see it, a glimmer of hope. This is telling me that, yes, something great is coming?
It'll be shakeups all along the way. And particularly in 2024, a big year of division and duality. What's going to happen is that this technologies, whether it's biotechnology or computer, are going to change the face of the planet. What our humans are going to discover about themselves with artificial intelligence is simply beyond. You're here right now on the planet for one thing, to shine your light. That's it. No more of the power games. No more suffering. Suffering was one of the stupidest things that we ever took on. The humanity is coming to the point where they're saying, no more. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. I know for a lot of your listeners, you wonder, how are we going to make it? What's going to happen in between now and then? And basically, Adamus will say, okay, here's what you do.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered what an Ascendant Master would say about where we are today, then do we have the Crimson Circle Adamus St Germain show for you. Today, I'll be talking with Geoffrey Hoppe, author, teacher, mystic, and the channeler of Adamus St Germain. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about what we can learn from an Ascendant Master to get through these trying times. So welcome to the show, Geoffrey. Are you ready to shine?
I am so ready. I think I'm already shining. I hope so. But yes, I am ready. So good to be on the show. And thank you very, very much for inviting me. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. And a mighty woohoo. And you have, you've got this going good. You're in Coal Creek Canyon. You're in Colorado. You're in my own stomping grounds. You have an amazing, I believe it's like a 4,000-foot studio. And so you just light it up there. I know it's like below zero outside, but you are lighting it up, Jeff.
It is definitely a cold day out, but toasty in here, nice in here. And you're down in Florida, so you don't have to worry about all that, the cold weather.
No, I'm just here, and it's a weird quirk of me, and people can see me running barefoot through the snow if they Google me online. I'm jealous, but let's switch gears here. Let's switch gears. There's something else. I am absolutely fascinated by Adamus St Germain. And since you've channeled Adamus since 2009, and I want to get your whole story here, but does Adamus St Germain say we're going to make it through these times?
That's a great question to start with, because he does. Recently, he said, okay, we've gone through a lot, obviously. And there was a point where he said that the kind of the old Earth and the new Earth was not really going to merge together. And a lot of people were really disappointed in that. And Adamus got some grief, some flack from people, including me. But what he's saying now is, even though they're not going to merge, this planet is going through such changes so quickly right now, and it's disruptive, obviously disruptive, but he says, yes, it is going to make it. There are going to be people that kind of don't go with the flow into this next level of humanity, the new human species, that he said, basically summarizing, they're going to wake up one morning and they're just someplace else. And maybe they don't even realize it because they're still holding on to power. They're holding on to things like war and suffering and things like that. They're not necessarily going to make it into the transition or what I even call the ascension of the planet. And it's coming faster than what the ascended masters ever thought it would come, faster than what most of us thought it would come. But he is emphatic about it, that this planet does make it, but there's going to be a lot of shakeup in between.
Thank you. And I really want to get to your backstory. So I'm going to try not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I have heard you channel Adamus St Germain, and I've heard him talk about the future isn't fixed. We've got probability, and we're going to go the physics route today because I love geeking out on it. It sounds like the probabilities have changed. Humanity has chosen. Chances are very good we're going to make it through this. But now whatever's taking place is going faster and faster and faster than anybody imagined. And so what seemed to be much farther out in the timeline is now like 2050, for instance.
It is 2050, kind of the projected time. It's the time that Adamus
Singularity.
says singularity. Yeah, absolutely. It just goes off the charts. You can't even measure it. If you tried to project into the future, into 2051, for instance, you'd probably find yourself in a void. You wouldn't be getting anything because it is so off the charts based on our current level of the perception of consciousness that you couldn't even perceive it. And it's mind-boggling how fast things are going and what's happening. And I know for a lot of your listeners, you wonder, how are we going to make it? What's going to happen in between now and then? And basically, Adamus will say, okay, here's what you do. Instead of all the worrying about it, just ask your future self from 2050 or 2049 to come in and let you know that it all works out. Now, how are we going to get there? It depends on humanity. There's going to be bumps and disruptions more than anything, but not carnage, not some nasty old apocalyptic scenario. But it'll be shakeups all along the way. And particularly in 2024, a big year of division and duality, a huge year of it. But the important thing is not to worry about it. Adamus has been really big about talking to our group, Crimson Circle,
Yeah.
in terms of you're here right now on the planet for one thing, to shine your light. That's it. That is all. And you don't do it by taking up causes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do it by going out and evangelizing. You do it by sitting on a park bench and sipping your latte and just enjoying the day. That's when the light shines naturally. And what the light does, it doesn't have an agenda. It's simply, it's illuminating greater potentials for humanity. So as you shine your light and you do this show, which is a tremendous amount of light going around the planet, it opens up the new higher potentials for humanity. Everybody from a physicist to a researcher, a doctor, and an inventor, or just a normal person on the street, suddenly they see their higher potentials. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. You're in the dark room, you don't see much other than what's right in front of you. You turn on the light and you go, oh my gosh, there is so much more here. And that's what humanity is facing right now. And beautiful as that sounds, there are some who are not ready for more light, who don't like that because they continue to play power games, manipulation. They want to go backwards into, whether it's 1,000 years ago or 5,000 or 50,000. And there's no going backwards at this point. We do not go backwards. So it's so beautiful. And I love the simplicity. He says, and he tells our group, the Crimson Circle, what we call Shaumbra, he says to them, you're already realized. So stop working on trying to be realized or enlightened. Get over it. It's already happened. Realize that you realized, and then be here on the planet as an embodied master, shining your light and not pushing any agenda.
See, I love that. And I think of the energy of 2024. And it's something I've been teaching quite a bit and I've been channeling and getting through as well, which is it's energy. If we don't label that energy bad, if I look at my studio lights, if you look at your studio lights, they're run by energy. You can shine your light even brighter through the energy of 2024, even though you're going, oh, look at the darkness. No, what you're seeing is a lot of chaotic energy that hasn't found a way to get organized yet, but it's coming, right. But you can use it to fuel yourself.
Well, when you have an infusion of light that's happening on the planet, and if, for example, we had an event on March 22nd last year. It was called Heaven's Cross, the beginning of the apocalypse. And that was basically opening this veil between this realm and the others, opening it up for greater accessibility to your light, to your divinity, whatever you want to call it. And Adamus said since then, not been quite a year, but since then, there is about 2% more consciousness and light on the planet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is. But what it's going to do now is push things and push people into more depth and more consciousness. One of the biggest three issues on the planet right now is the issue of consciousness. What is it? I mean, you don't necessarily see it in the headlines, but it is because of AI, the whole question of consciousness is coming to the forefront. We have more consciousness on the planet right now, and it's going to disrupt old systems, everything from the church or churches to financial systems and everything else, but not for the purpose of chaos and collapse, for the purpose of transition, for moving to the next level.
Thank you. So, last question I have before we go into your story. I'm going to do my best to say, I promise, last question, but this is just fascinating, and I'm loving it, Jeff. As you said, that Adamus and or you take a lot of heat for this, but the old Earth and new Earth are not going to merge. What does that mean?
It's actually about this whole division thing that I mentioned before, and there was a point up to now where there was our classic Earth, we call it, that we've all been coming to for reincarnations, and at the same point, we were kind of architecting in the other realm a new Earth, kind of a more of an ideal or a template for what we think it or should be here. The two never actually melded together. Instead, and I don't want to go way off on a tangent, but instead, some things happened in the last couple of years where the concept of the new Earth, it didn't meld with this classic Earth, but yet now there's over 200 new Earths in the other realms. This is where the angelic beings who have never been in human form, it's where they go now to learn, as we do here on Earth. The angelic families, 144,000 angelic families disbanded a couple of years ago. There was no more need to have all these angelic families, which created wars with each other oftentimes anymore. So they disbanded, and those angelic beings have gone to these new Earths. So many of us, and I'm going to assume you as well, we go there in our nocturnal state at night, and we teach there. And it's a trip to teach there because these are angelic beings who have never been in physical body, never been to Earth, and they're very curious about Earth. They want to know all about it. And you try telling them about football, for instance, and they just don't get it. You try telling them about what it's like to eat or to make love, and they're fascinated, but they just don't get it. They will eventually. But the important part was this Earth, our classic Earth, has been the only place in all of creation where one could go into their true ascended self, their mastery, their what we call the ascended master self. This was the only planet where you could become enlightened. Every ascended master, and there's now about 11,832, thank you, Adamus, ascended masters in the other realms, have all come by way of
that number's been growing.
Yes, it has been. Yeah. And I got to check in once in a while. But this has been the only planet where an angelic being can come, go through very tight condensation, challenging gravitational forces, to walk through the experience ultimately of the understanding of consciousness and energy. They're actually two separate things. Consciousness does not contain energy, but they work with each other. And this is the only place in all the cosmos where that's been done up until now. And now with the new Earths, it provides opportunities for others. But back to your question, the old Earth and the new Earths did not meld. But in a way, there's a beauty in that because we've maintained our classic Earth, and we're improving that. We're honing and bringing more consciousness and light, and we're basically humanity in a way is saying, no more of the power games, no
Thank
more
you.
suffering. Suffering was one of the stupidest things that we ever took on. It was needless, pointless, but we did for some weird reason. But the humanity is coming to the point where they're saying, no more. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. Yeah.
So, forgive me.
Yeah. It's a big one.
One more. if I understand right, you were talking about, you said 144,000 angelic families.
Yes,
And you talked about all of these different Earths, which to me, I'm guessing is like simulations or simultaneous realities taking
that's
place.
correct. Right.
And then you said something that I went, wait, stop.
Mm.
Angelic Wars?
Oh yeah, yeah. The Tobias channeled something years and years ago called Journey of the Angels, talking about he used metaphors, but it's about leaving home, leaving the 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 oneness, I guess you would call it, going into the void, absolute nothingness, absolute void, and but feeling and hearing something, even though we had gone into this void individually. It wasn't like we all went as a group, individually, but suddenly the awareness that I exist. And, it wasn't physical, it wasn't anything, it was just absolute void. But to have that sense, I exist, I am that I am. And then from that, the next question, stupid question that we ask, but who am I? And that question, who am I, has led us through this incredible journey through the angelic realms.
Mhm.
And we organized into angelic families, 144,000, the family of Michael, the family of, um, uh, um, trying to remember all the various families right now, but all these families, the family of Metatron,
Yeah.
and of Isa, a bunch of other names. And part of our thing was to come together, the soul beings, to try to find our way back home. We were kind of like all lost out in nothingness. We were consciousness with a degree of energy, but not, they weren't fused together. But suddenly you realize, God, nobody else knows the answer. Maybe that other angelic family knows. Let's go over and find out. And we you call it a war, but we tried to um, take them over to see if they had the answers. Ultimately, nobody really had the answers. How do we get back home? Because it was never intended to go back home. It was intended to go out in this beautiful journey of finding the relationship between consciousness and energy. So at some point, the energy began slowing down through all of creation. It was almost like everything was going to come to an impasse or just a freeze up. And at that point, the angelic families were concerned. What if we go out of existence? What if everything just collapses? And that's when they got together in what they called the Order of the Ark
Mhm.
or the Order of the Archangels. And like the original United Nations, but this was off in the other realms, and created this place called Earth and our physical universe for us to descend into in a very slowed down fashion
Yeah.
where we would understand the consequences of our thoughts and actions and ultimately the interplay between consciousness and energy. And Earth was created. Enough of us chose to come here and become embodied and forget, intentionally, actually, to forget where we came from so we could be in this reality to really begin to understand at a very deep, a very visceral level, uh, the who am I, the I exist.
Thank you. It's a perfect dovetail. When we talk about coming here, I'll use the term collective amnesia, forgetting who and what we are. If we take you back in time, Jeff, I would love to go through your earliest days. I'd love to go through Army and NASA and bring us forward to today, because my guess is your higher self knew, but you in the physical plane had no idea what was coming your way.
No idea. Little background. I was born and raised in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
Yes, I am a Green Bay Packer fan to this day. And, typical Midwest upbringing. Nice town, but not particularly exciting. I remember thinking, when I was in high school in particular, I got to get out. I got to see the world. And the fastest way out of town was the Army. So I enlisted age 17, and I had never thought about being in the military, but suddenly it was just there. It was like, go ahead and sign up, and you'll see the world. It was such a strange thing. It was so not like me, GI Joe type. But the fascinating thing, and here's where I've truly learned to allow the guidance from whatever you call it, higher self, higher consciousness. It was a stupid decision, and particularly it was right at the end of the Vietnam War. I went in as a journalist and broadcaster. I'd done some work at a radio station in high school, and I liked writing. So I went to the journalism school in the military. Through a series of events that happened, the Army ended up assigning me to NASA, to Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California in the mid-'70s. I was 17, 18 years old at the time. They paid for my apartment because there was no Army barracks. I wore civilian clothes every day. I worked at in a public relations department dealing with aerospace.
No accidents.
No accidents. And ultimately, years later, I started a aviation company. So what I learned back then was phenomenal. But what was really interesting is I had to take pretty complex engineering documents and turn them into press releases for the normal person to understand. So it was my first real experience with taking stuff I didn't know anything about and to be able to run it through my processor and then communicate it. That's what I do as a channeler. I'm just a translator. I'm taking the incoming energies from Adamus and very rapidly putting them into words.
Now, did you have at the time any spiritual practice, any spiritual understanding, anything that you believed in, leaned on, or anything of the sort?
Born and raised Catholic, lukewarm Catholic, went to public school for the most part, but not really. I had a couple experiences when I was young, but I kind of pushed those off to the side.
Because usually to me these are keyholes, or there are things, are portals where if you can look into them, actually you plug back into that energy. Can you share a little bit?
Well, the one in particular that has always stood out as I was probably 5 years old.
Yep.
And I remember we lived kind of near ravines in a river, and I was off playing one day by myself. And suddenly these three beings came to me and
Yes.
said that they were leaving.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most traumatic moments of my life. These were like my buddies. They weren't just little fairy angels. I mean, these were really cool, angelic beings. And I remember them telling me, I know the exact spot. I go back and visit it once in a while. And they said, we're leaving now. And it was very traumatic. Shortly after that, I got into a bicycle accident where I flew headfirst into a telephone pole, and things shut down for a long time. Long time. Fast forwarding it again to being in California in the Army, one of my favorite things to do was to go to the Santa Cruz, to the beaches on the weekends, just usually by myself. And I remember at one point, really not having a religious background, but I said, "Dear God, here I am. I'm out on the beach by myself. Take me. I don't know
Oh, wow.
what to do, where to go. I'm all yours. I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to tell you what I need. I'm yours. I am, here to serve." And it wasn't more than 3 months later, a buddy of mine from Wisconsin, somebody I went to high school with, came out to visit. He wanted to quit smoking, asked me to hypnotize him. Long story short, while he was under, I didn't know really anything about past lives, but while he was under, I kept on regressing him to when he was like 10, 5, 1. And then I finally said, "So where are you before you're born?" Expecting him to say, "Well, I'm in heaven with God," or whatever. He went through and started going into all these past life experiences. And for the next 2 weeks, we hypnotized him every day and wrote all this stuff down. This is, pre-digital recordings. And that really opened me up to that there's a lot more out there that we just don't know about.
Toto, you're not in Kansas anymore. So,
Yeah. And then I put it down for, I meditated. I read every Edgar Cayce book and Seth book I could get my hands on. Got out of the Army. I got involved in the business world. Kind of forgot about all this stuff. I mean, it was still kind of there. Every once in a while, I'd read a book, but pretty much put down any spiritual journey or pursuit until mid-'90s. Long story short, one day I'm on an airplane coming home from a business trip, like 8 o'clock at night or whatever. plane wasn't very full, and suddenly I heard a voice say, "I'm here to work with you." And I kind of looked. There was nobody sitting beside me. I kind of looked around, and nobody there. I said, "Okay," closed my eyes, and then I heard it again. "I am Tobias. I'm here to work with you." I went, "Okay, I'm working too hard." I had a I had a marketing consulting company and a startup aviation company. I'm like, I'm working way too many hours. And I thought, have I been drinking? Did I have a couple of toddies on the plane? I said, no. He went into a discussion with me the rest of the flight for about another hour. It was just fascinating. And the whole time I kept on thinking, I'm losing my mind, but this is pretty cool. Next day, I woke up in the morning, recalled the conversation, and I was angry. I thought, I am just losing it. I've got to focus on my life. I've got to take better care of myself. And I was just like, God, I'm letting my mind slip. We came in about a week later. I was driving home from work one night. I had a long drive and came in later and said, "Okay, you ready?" Ended up, he took me on a 1 year journey, what I call my spiritual basic training.
Yeah.
Every night on the way home from work, he would come in and we would talk. And sometimes I was so angry with him, I'd throw him out. He told me one time, I asked him about going home, going back to God. And he said, "No, you never go back home." I was so upset. It's like, well, then what's the purpose? And once I finally settled down a couple of days later, he said, "No, no, no, no. Home comes to you." And we had great conversations, great talks. And he taught me more than anything, he taught me how to feel and sense things. It was beautiful.
What's so interesting to me is he was tuning the instrument. I can see very clearly he was tuning the instrument, which means your wife's going to be wondering what in the world happened because your energy. I like to say first off, language is not our first language. And so my
Right,
wife will
right,
call me on the spot, and I'm like, I don't have words right now. Language is not my first language.
right.
Energy is, and so you're bathing in this energy, and it's shifting you. So at what point did she go, Jeff? Do you want to tell me what's going on?
Well, she knew something was up. I was just, I was acting odder than I normally would. But, she wasn't prying. And one day I thought, it was about a year into this with Tobias. And one day I thought, I just got to tell her because it's too big of a part of my life. I can't hold it back anymore. I felt like I needed to scream and tell somebody. So one day I came home from work and said, "Linda, I need you to sit down." And she kind of looked at me like, I said, "No, just please, just sit down. I need to tell you about something." And I wasn't being very perceptive. I was too into myself at the moment. But she was kind of looking at me like, "What?" And I finally said, "Linda, I need you to tell you about a friend of mine."
Oh,
Oh, and I saw the look on her face. Her eyes got wide. And I'm like, suddenly I realized it's like, no, 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 you don't understand. It's an old dead Jew. and, uh, and she's like, what?
that
And then I
takes care of
explained,
everything.
yeah, yeah, hello. And then I told her about it. And I said, this Tobias came to me. Tobias was my father in a past life a long, long, long time ago. He's in the apocryphal books of the Bible, story called the Book of Tobit, a beautiful story, which I'd never read, by the way. I only found out about it. It's a great story. They took it out of the main part of the Bible because they said it was kind of a story, but not necessarily, they couldn't necessarily validate it, but a beautiful story if you ever get a chance. The Book of Tobit.
What's the Cliff Notes version of it?
Tobias, in that lifetime, it was about 500 BC, was very, very Jewish, very dedicated to God, followed all of God's rules. Uh, he was a slave. The Jews were slaves at the time, but he had a good job. He was a buyer for the king, so he had it pretty good. And one day he was taking a nap outside someplace. A bird flew over, pooped in his eyes, and he went blind. So now he's not able to do his work, not able to get paid, even though he was a slave. Sends his young son, young Tobias, off to get some money being held for him by somebody else in a far off place. That was me, young Tobias. And he arranged for somebody to escort him because young Tobias was like I don't know, maybe 14 years old at the time. And it turned out to be Archangel Raphael. And the rest of the story is about their journey going to get this money. Tobias meets this girl along the way, Sarah, fall madly in love, but she'd been married 7 times before that. But each night on the wedding night, the devil would come along and kill the husband. And so this whole beautiful drama about what's going to happen on their wedding night. Everything works out fine. He returns home with money to his father Tobias. Also has the healing potions to cure his blindness, and life is good after that. Beautiful story.
So you're
Yeah.
you're now channeling your father.
Yes, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about Luke, I am your father.
Right. 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 Yeah.
Where does life take you from there? What's
Mm.
the Crimson Circle, and how long did you end up channeling Tobias?
And this, I'm going to pause and say, it's so easy to get caught up in ourselves or not trust in that, but there is always, always, always that higher guidance from ourselves first, and then from the angelic beings. And if we just stop for a moment and allow it to happen, and it was true divine guidance at this point. I was very, very involved in the startup aviation company.
Mhm.
It eventually we developed a technology for internet on airplanes, and I was one of the co-founders of the company. We went from, literally scraping together nickels and dimes to fund the company, to eventually getting Goldman Sachs to invest huge, huge dollars in it.
And I've got to pause you. You ended up with a patent. You have 3 patents in multi-dimensional communication. Is that right?
Yes, yes, it's kind of funny actually. Yeah, so I like to say I'm the only channeler in the world that has patents for multidimensional communications, those related to our technologies that we develop for air-to-ground communications. But it says it right on the patent, little plaque. It says multidimensional communications. I'll take it. Um, yeah, so the universe has a wonderful sense of humor as well.
Yes.
And what happened next was that the company, it was a startup, it was a lot of hard work, but we were finally getting funding. We had a big battle in Washington with the 10 major phone companies at the time teamed up against us, but we eventually won. Anyway, long story short, one day I walked into the office and my boss, the CEO of the company, uh, basically fired me. Uh, and it was such a relief. I was doing more and more of the work with Crimson Circle. We were doing regular gatherings, not webcast or anything, but we were doing regular gatherings, small group of people. And I got a very nice severance package. And I took a deep breath and thought, oh, finally, I have some relief. I'm too, I don't know, stubborn. I would have never quit, but I wasn't happy anymore. And suddenly my boss fires me. I got a good package, and I thought, okay, I've been working since I was 12 years old. I'm going to just take it easy for a while, work around the property. We have a nice place up in the mountains, and just do some work up there, not work, or maybe kind of retire. 3 weeks later, the phone rings, and it was somebody saying, "So do you guys do workshops?" We hadn't, but we could maybe take a look at it. They're from England, of all places. I don't know how they heard about us. And then, literally after that, the phone was ringing. This is back before we did so much email, but the phone was ringing, and people are saying, "Would you come to do a workshop?" That year, we went to a number of places in the United States. We went to England. We went to Korea, Japan, and suddenly we were just on the go. Suddenly, just traveling all over the world.
So if I get this timeline right, 2 million miles, and I'm not sure how many years later, but in 2009, Tobias speaks to you, and like those three uh, people, beings, friends, angelic friends from year 5, Tobias says, "I'm out of here."
Yeah, and it was one of those things. It had been 10 years with him. and I loved the work, loved Tobias, but he said, I'm out of here. My first reaction was, okay, it's been a great run, and we've got a lot of information to share with people. Um, I was a little sad, but on the other hand, it was like, okay, we did what we came to do. He was leaving, working with Crimson Circle and me, so that he could actually have another incarnation back on this planet, even though he was an ascended master. But he said, I'm going to be occupied in my new life as Sam, was the name of the his new incarnation. And he said, oh, by the way, I was talking to somebody else about maybe coming in and working with you in the Crimson Circle, but I'll let you know, once I get the final okay.
Has Sam appeared? I had heard it's Sam in Oregon. Have you had any connection to Sam?
Not directly, other than channeling him a few times. And he's no longer on the planet. He had spent about 10 years. A beautiful story, but uh, kind of a complex story. When Tobias infused into Sam, Sam was 10 years old. So it was a shell body that he infused into, which actually can be done, and it's more common than a walk-in. No, then Sam finally left. But Tobias came back to me a couple of weeks later and says, okay, we got a new guy coming in, Ascended Master, and his name is Saint Germain. I'd heard of Saint Germain. I'd actually talked to Saint Germain privately quite a few years prior to that. And I thought, well, that's good. He's kind of well known, you know, he gets around.
You don't
And
shoot
just cut,
low.
right, yeah, right. Cutting to the chase, then he had actually, Saint Germain had actually channeled a few times while Tobias was there. Tobias was always bringing in guests, like the Jimmy Kimmel show or something. Always different guests on. So I was slightly familiar with him. When he came into the Crimson Circle, he said, "I'm going to go by the name of Adamus Saint Germain, or properly said, Adamus Saint Germain." Um, I say Adamus Saint Germain, and I never forget when he first came in to take over full time. First thing he had me do was open my eyes. I'd always channeled Tobias with my eyes closed, and suddenly he's opening my eyes. I'm trying to shut them, and he's trying to open them, and it was almost comical. We're going back and forth, but he wanted me to connect with the audience, not just sit here, you know, in the bar stool and channel with my eyes closed. Then he wanted me to get up and walk around. And that's hard to do when you're channeling because you're in a different zone and nothing is as real or as tangible. When I first started channeling with my eyes open, it was hard to even focus on a person's face because I would not just see their face, but I would see faces of their past lives. And it's very disconcerting when you're trying to channel and everything's kind of woozy. But, I started channeling Adamus. I didn't like it at first. Not at all. It took me about 5-6 months to get used to it because it's very provocative. And Tobias was like a loving grandfather, you know, just nurturing. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. You're not crazy. Adamus is like, let's get on with this program. So it was very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Is it Adamus who has had lifetimes as Shakespeare and lifetimes as Mark Twain?
Yes. Yeah, he's had some very illustrious lifetimes. And he's now he channels with eyes open. Usually, if there's an audience, he's walking around the room. His one thing is very, very clear. He said, I am here to take you to your realization and beyond. I'm not here to make you feel good, week after week or whatever. I'm not here to heal you. And he's throwing people out. I mean, he invites them to leave. He said, Crimson Circle serves a purpose of helping to guide people from their awakening into their realization, into their mastery. He uses the word realization rather than enlightenment. He doesn't particularly care for that, but he says, I only want to work with people who are serious. I don't want the hobbyists. I don't want the looky-loos. I don't want the distractors. This is only if you're absolutely serious about your enlightenment, your realization in this lifetime, your last lifetime.
we're going to have you, with your permission, with your blessing, channel him in a few minutes. But
Yeah.
how has it been bathing in that energy, and how has that shifted you?
It was a huge shift, but I look back now; it was needed. Adam or Tobias was here once again to let us know we're not crazy, because that's a very common thing. We get into this kind of true spiritual evolution, and the kind of the gravity of life tries to pull us down and say you're crazy, you're nuts. Just go about your everyday life. Stop these crazy dreams. But Tobias said, no, you're not crazy. There's so much more, so much beyond. So when he left and Saint Germain came in, and he's an ass kicker. He provokes people. He's annoying at times. He doesn't put up with. He's not tolerant. If you're not here and absolutely dedicated to your realization more than anything else, find another place. Go somewhere else, because this group is only about that. And then eventually, as we come to realization, staying on the planet to shine your light, because, oh dear God, this planet needs it right now. To go into this true apocalypse. An apocalypse doesn't mean destruction. Apocalypse simply means going to the next level or transformation, and that's what's happening on the planet. Where the planet is changing so fast right now, and we're literally going into the next era of the human species. We're going beyond the typical biological human into something totally, totally new. And we need that light right now. We're going into AI. I mean, Adamus has said that 2024 is the year of AI. You're going to hear it in everything. I bought a toothbrush the other day and said it was AI enhanced. It's like everybody's using that term right now. Okay, so as we get into it with Adamus, I'd like to introduce my wife, Linda. She's going to do a little breathing that helps me get connected with Adamus and really integrated, and then off and running.
With that, let's take that good deep breath, that conscious breath. Breathe, opening to the highest potentials. Breathing into you with feeling, allowing. Take that good deep breath, opening to the energies of Adamus Saint Germain. He's here for each of us. Breathe it in. Let it flow. Take that good deep breath. Feel it. Be with it. Feel into what this means to you. Breathing into the soul of you. All of you. Breathe. Adamus is here. Adamus is here.
I am that I am. Adamus of sovereign domain. If you would allow me just a moment to feel into the energy of this gathering. It's taking place right here, right now. But even though some of you aren't going to be coming here till the future, till a later date, we're all here together. And as we begin, I'd be delighted to answer your questions, Michael. But I do have to thank you for the work that you do, bringing light to the planet. A lot of light comes through every time you do an interview, every time you do a show. This isn't our first meeting. We've known each other from back in the time of the mystery schools in Europe, and particularly in the area of Romania. You were at one of those mystery schools. You were one of my favorite but most challenging students at the time. Very high energy, very much into communications, very talkative, extremely curious. And I remember sitting with you one day talking about into the future and saying, someday in another lifetime, you're going to be connecting people all around the world. Now, this was long before the internet or even before radio, television, or anything, and you couldn't envision how you would be doing that. But I said, no, one day you're going to be bringing light and connecting people, and here you go. Here you are. I was afraid several times in this lifetime of yours we're going to lose you. You're playing to the extremes like you used to do, but here you are. So thank you for following your path, following your divinity.
Thank you. I feel like saying thank you, Master. Thank you. May I ask, why was I a challenging student?
Boisterous. You didn't like studying at all. You didn't like conforming in any sort of way. You didn't like rules. Now you're wondering now, are you talking about this lifetime or past life? The past life and this lifetime. You carried it forward. You had what I would call almost an obsessive curiosity with everything.
Mhm.
And there were times where we'd be like, would he just stop asking so many questions? But you, prior to that lifetime, you'd had more mundane, more typical lifetimes. But at some point prior to that lifetime, you had something happen to you that opened you up. It also caused you to die in that previous lifetime, previous to the mystery school, but it opened you up and you became so curious. It was your awakening. You became so curious about everything. You finally found your way to that mystery school in Romania, and we studied the mystics, the magic. We studied the beyond, the unknown. You always had so many questions, kind of a what next scenario. There was times I appreciated it, but at times it was a little tiring. But I knew you were going to do very important things at this time of the machines. That's what I call your current era. You were going to come in and take everything you would learn through your curiosity, through your journeys, and bring it here and convey it to others.
Thank you. And I'm almost embarrassed to ask questions now with that lead up or that setup. However, is there anything that and I want this to be focused on everybody else today, so I'm going to resist other questions about me after this. But is there anything that I get or should know about myself or about what we're doing in this era or age of the machines?
For you personally, the biggest thing, and it affects so many others, is don't doubt. And I know sometimes you get a little consumed with that. You have ways of handling it, of moving beyond, but you doubt and you wonder, are you doing the right thing? Are you doing the right guests? Are you going in the right direction? What's coming next in the work that you do? I'm going to ask you to just truly relax into your own realization, relax into the work that you're doing. You have a lot of angelic guidance as well as human guidance supporting the work that you do. You come to a point here. I don't like to put specific times on things, but in the next few years, where the work that you're doing, the show that you're doing, takes a big leap. Don't feel overwhelmed by it when it comes. Accept it because you're setting it up along with those who are working with you. There's a tremendous need on the planet right now for uh, communications, for linking together those of like mind and heart and soul. And that's one of the things you're doing. You're providing a service through your own work, through the ones you interview, of sharing a lot of knowledge and wisdom, sharing that there is so much more to life than what meets the eyes and the human senses. You're helping people to feel comfortable with going into the next level, going into the beyond. And it's going to take on some interesting new twists for you.
What is the next level or the beyond, or what is, dare I say, the new earth or new humanity that is coming?
To be determined. And that's why it's so important right now for any awakened human to be there, letting their light radiate without agenda. It's a tipping point right now. It's the point where the biology needs to change. It's been locked into the same template for arguably 20,000 years, maybe even longer than that. But it's outmoded. It hasn't evolved like it should. And if you're wondering why, it's because it got stuck in ancestral karma, and ancestral patterns, which show up in the DNA and other things in the body. And it hasn't evolved the way it really should have naturally. So right now, there's a tremendous change that's going to occur in biology. It could be a biological change. It could be an AI type of change. And neither one is good or bad, by the way. I know a lot of listeners are very opposed to having any type of um, implants or any type of artificial things occurring to biology. But biology is biology is temporary. Consciousness can be infused into anything you want, whether it's technology, whether it's a rock, whether it's the living mechanism of the body. It can be go into anything. All this is to be determined right now. But what's happening on the planet is the new human species is starting to evolve. It will probably go by way of technology, uh, biotechnology, nanotechnology. It's going to be very, very different. The work we're doing with the Crimson Circle and work some of the other groups are doing is for the biology now to be in harmony and coexist with the light body. The light body is a natural thing within each and every one of you. The human body is a very complex neural network, extremely complex, outmoded. It's so complex and inefficient. It has there's what 80 billion neurons in the brain. There's a massive number of atoms and other structures in the body. It's time for that to start going away. It's time for it to become more efficient. So the light body comes in, and light body is singular. There is no network in it. It's not this complex array of neurons and protons and proteins and everything else. It is very singular. So the work that we're doing with the ones who are awakened is now to allow the assimilation of the light body into the biology. Where that goes, it's not sure. But one thing I do know is it's a much less complex biological, physical being, and one that doesn't necessarily need the old way of birthing as humans have known. This is not science fiction. This is coming about right now.
So if I look at my daughter, she's 20 months and 5 days old. Not that I'm counting.
Yes.
Uh, and I would say that she is the new gen and comes
Yes.
in many ways. And I get to understand what your definition of realization is, but she comes in so many ways. I'm going to say realized as
Mhm.
compared to, well, me, as compared to our generations. Is she almost the end line or the end game in the old version of humanity, or is this some sort of a bridge? Because I'm thinking about, is humanity like an electron state change? There's us here now, and maybe she's at the top of that vibration, and then bink, we're going to be someplace else.
Yeah, and she represents you call it the end of the line, but it's actually the beginning of a new line. She's not had any other incarnations on the planet. She comes in clean. She doesn't have karma. She doesn't have the ancestral chains around her. So she comes in very, very clean. The problem is she has a hard time understanding why humans do what they do. But she's going to have much more flexibility in the physical body and in the mind, the brain itself, to assimilate the light body. She's going to do it rather quickly without all the old junk. But she needs to know, as any of these new ones coming in, they need to know that they are safe. They need to know that they don't know how to make their way around this planet like you do. They've had training on some of the new Earths before they got here, but it's like theoretical, it's classroom, and until you actually get here and find yourself incarnated in biology and amongst other people, it's just a theory. So the most important thing you and your wife can do for her is implicit safety and letting her know she's nurtured and cared for. Then she's going to be able to integrate things like the light body in very, very quickly. And yes, heralding a new, a whole new generation, a new age, but not going the way of having to integrate things like AI, implants, things like that. humanity, for the most part, is going that way. But what is happening is there are enough humans now who are awakened and either enlightened or coming to enlightenment that they're going to understand they don't need the technology. They don't need an outside force. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not natural. What is natural is allowing your divinity, your light body, your intuition, your self into this realm.
Thank you. You mentioned that 20,000 years ago, it didn't have to be this way. It sounds like something went a little bit off the rails 20,000 years ago. What is either bringing us back on the rails, or what is the energy that I sense is, for lack of another term, a push? There is a push. There is an accelerant, sort of like the accelerant beneath a rocket ship, that is accelerating humanity at this time into 2024, where it is certainly going to be an oh my God year and an oh my God moment. What is this accelerant, and where did it come from?
The accelerant is basically consciousness. There was a series of events that took place after World War II, and including the 60s, to a degree the 70s, but particularly in the mid to late 1980s. There was a new level of light and consciousness that started coming into the planet because more and more humans were becoming awakened. That was the accelerant that then led to the development of technologies that accelerated technologies that brought about things like, ultimately, like the iPhone. And whereas back in the mid 80s, the concept of artificial intelligence was futuristic, it was almost a joke. There was hard to get funding for anything from it. Now it is the thing. You're not going to have a day go by where you don't hear about AI to some degree. So that was the accelerant, consciousness. That prompted technology. And there was a huge jump in technological advances and funding and companies and research that occurred in the early 90s and extended that and for quite a long time. You have to have a balance of consciousness at all times with the fast development of technology. Otherwise, it could really hurt. Otherwise, it could do a lot of damage. Artificial intelligence is truly amazing. And what humans are going to discover about themselves with artificial intelligence is simply beyond. But it's got to be balanced with consciousness and light. Literally, in my last lifetime, in my last years, I wrote a book called Time of the Machines. In that book, I time traveled from basically the late 1700s into the year 2020. And I was amazed when I landed in 2020. I found everybody hunched over, everybody looking at something in their hands. And I looked about. I was stunned. I didn't know what all this was. Now I realized it was your looking glasses, your mobile phones. Well, I could have never imagined. Then in that book, it talks about the time of the machines, the development of, I didn't call it artificial intelligence at the time, but what is now artificial intelligence, the effect that it has on the planet, the acceleration of everything, the interconnection of everything. And my book was fiction, but I did talk about robots. I take delight in saying I was the first writer to talk about robots in a sci-fi way, but the book was never published, so didn't really count.
I've read sections of this book. You've talked about, for instance, the fax machine, and I was fascinated by that. All of these things that you talked about that's H.G. Wells that then came about.
Absolutely. And in the book, again, kind of fiction, but it was looking into potentials about how these machines, what you call your robots and computers now, end up taking over the world, running the world, not necessarily trying to destroy the human race, but trying to get something for themselves that humans had that they still didn't. And no matter all the power of artificial intelligence, they couldn't seem to grab this one last thing. It was eventually their undoing because they exerted all of their energy or power or whatever to try to get this one last thing that humans had that they didn't. It's called a soul. It was eventually their undoing in my book. It caused the destruction of these robots and computers, and eventually humanity once again arose with a much more clear understanding of themselves. Now, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that this technologies, whether it's biotechnology or computer, are going to change the face of the planet. Between now and the end point of this, or the culmination of it, there's going to be a lot of division on the planet. There's going to be the haves and the have-nots, not just in terms of money, but in terms of potential. In a little bit of a way, it's like Atlantis. There were the haves and the have-nots. There's the ones who understood the technology, understood how to use crystals for a wide variety of things, and including healing, including longevity, but they kept it away from 90% of the population. Eventually led to the downfall of Atlantis. But there's that deep-seated fear in many people that it might. So what I see is very rapid technological advances needing consciousness, needing light on the planet. Not to battle it and not to try to slow it down, but simply when you have consciousness in anything, in technology, then it's used for a higher good rather than control or destruction.
I was talking with Jeff before you came through, and we were talking about how you were very, shall I say, strong with your members of the Crimson Circle in if they are going from awakening to realization, that you do not want hobbyists, or you don't want people where I think it's like ego coming in the back door. There's of enlightenment. There's a spiritual bypass. Why is it so important? And it's something I gently, lovingly challenge my audience with, which is what I call the shadow work. Why is it so important that we take this strongly, seriously? There's got to be a better word for it, but that we embrace this and say, all right, this is why I'm here. Let's do this.
Anyone who, up to now, anyone who is on this, the spiritual path, the journey, what you want to call it, will get distracted at some point. They get distracted because it's difficult going from awakening to realization. It's difficult on the identity. It's difficult on the body and the mind. It's not what people expect. They think when they are awakened that suddenly they're going to be able to perform miracles, suddenly that they're got some supernatural capabilities. They equate it with being a superhuman rather than being a divine being. That's the mindset that occurs. So they go along this path and they get easily distracted. I call it machio. Machio means spiritual distractions. I am very clear. I'm very outspoken. I will call machio when I see machio. All is a way of saying get back on the path, get back to realization. Enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is a natural thing. You do not have to work at it. You should not study it. You should not come up with all these accoutrements. It's not going to get you any closer to realization. Realization is a natural evolution, a natural cycle. You go through all your cycles of your incarnation on the planet until you hit a point of maturity. That point of maturity is realizing that energy is yours. It's not in a field out there. Energy is yours and yours alone. Nobody can take it from you or give it to you unless you pretend that it can be that way. And the energy is there to serve you. You are the master. The energy is there to serve you, not to teach you anything, not to tell you how to do anything different. It is there to serve you. It's there to serve you in abundance and in health and in knowingness, whatever way. This whole thing of coming to realization is a very natural thing. I tell Crimson Circle to put it out as a slogan: relax into realization. It always brings about the vision that I remember in one of my lifetimes walking into a room where it was filled with rabbis, and they were studying the Talmud, they're studying the Torah, and they're studying for their whole life. I was amazed. It's like you are not going to get there through studying. You're going to get there through allowing. It is a natural process. So yes, I'm very clear with Shaumbra. I'll call them out on it. I'll chastise them if I need to. I'll distract them to get them undistracted if I need to, because these are the people that are coming to the Crimson Circle. They've made a commitment, whether it was in a past lifetime or early in this lifetime, for their realization and to stay here on the planet as true bringers of light at a time where it is so needed on the planet.
Thank you. Why is this time so different? And what in the world, where did we get lost and think suffering, like look at the wars going on, that suffering is the path to realization?
It came up by many different means, but I'm gonna lay a big burden on the religions with the whole concept of suffering. They, and this goes back to the time of Yeshua, the time of Jesus. Now, suffering was occurring at that point, but the church has brought it in as a marketing tool. It wasn't part of the nature of the Essenes at the time of Yeshua or the Gnostics shortly after. Matter of fact, it was taught by the Gnostics that suffering is an illusion. You don't need it. But as the church grew, the Catholic Church, and eventually the offshoots of it, they found out it was much easier to market, to frighten people, and suffering became a way of nearly every religion, not all, but nearly every. And you walk into many Catholic churches these days, you open the doors to enter the church. What do you see right out in front of you but Jesus on a cross? Even in some of the Eastern religions and spiritual movements, it's the suffering of the human body, the denial of the body, of the joy of eating or having sex or any of these other things. It's became a pattern. It was part of so many religious movements and groups to refrain from the joys of being in the human body. The human body is filled with sin and lust and everything else. No, it's not. It's filled with sensuality. And once the belief in suffering came about, then we brought in these things of guilt and shame, and they accompany suffering. They work together and they take the joy out of life. And it's despicable. I sometimes go on a rant about these groups that promote suffering, that promote you have to study hard, you have to fast, you can't eat meat, you can't. It's like none of those things are true. It is about immersing in life with your light, allowing sensuality and joy that brings about the real God self within. Why anyone would think that suffering would get you any closer to whether it's Jesus or your divine self, I do not know. That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves.
Why so much war and derisiveness and division and apparent, I don't believe it's real, mono against mono right now?
It goes back to an ancient belief that energy is outside of yourself and that you have to try to acquire as much as you can. It turned into the concept of power. Power is nothing but an energy grab. As long as humans continue to believe that energy is outside of them, that it resides in some field out there, that it's you got to beg, borrow, and steal for it, that you have to war for it, they'll continue to have wars. When humanity begins to understand what energy is the compassion of the I am, of consciousness. It's the excitement of consciousness. That is energy, and it is yours. You are a divine sovereign being. It's yours alone. It sits in a neutral field called the devir until it is called forth by the human, in this case, called forth to go into experience. Then energy turns into light. Light eventually creates gravity. Gravity creates time and space. And then eventually it solidifies into matter, and it's called reality that you're in right now. And it's simply all your energy at work. But humans still believe that energy is out there. They have no clue what energy is. Nobody's ever really identified the real nature of energy. And as long as there's that belief that it's outside of you and you need to take it from somebody else or something else, we'll continue to have wars. Physics is going to help quantum physics is going to help change that understanding of energy in the near future. They're right on the verge of coming out with the theories that energy is not at all what Einstein thought it was, what other great ones have thought it was. It's something very personal, and it eventually turns to light and creates reality. But in answer to your question, the belief that it is outside of you is causing the wars.
Thank you. Will we see free in quotes, energy during our lifetime?
Absolutely. Yes. And it has to be brought in very carefully. It's already in the laboratories. It's already being tested, and it's not what most people think. It's not solar or wind power or things like that. You'll see it in your lifetime, but it has to be brought in gently. Otherwise, the disruption on everything would be overwhelming. You might argue and say, well, yeah, but wouldn't free energy be great for the planet right now? Well, you have to consider all your distribution systems, all your manufacturing systems, all your power control systems on the planet, governments and industries and everything else are going to be completely changed. Free energy will become available when humanity has the maturity. It's ready to go right now, and it's based on gravity. It's based on the real understanding of gravity, not just the gravity that pulls things to the earth, but gravity that holds everything into place, including thoughts, and gravity that's also expansional. I recently gave it a name, a Rotheon. It means that full spectrum gravity, it holds it in, it expands at the same time. When this planet has the maturity, perhaps 10 years, 15 years from now, then this free energy, this non-polluting energy, this energy that anyone can tap into will start to become available.
Thank you. How does humanity, eh, my crystal ball is broken. I know that we've chosen to make it through this time. I know that we can look at all of the challenge and strife as energy, which we can use for good. But how does humanity gain this maturity at a time where it appears, and objects in the mirror are different than they appear to be, it appears quite the reverse on the surface?
It does, because there's a lot of disruption going on right now. And believe it or not, the disruption is being handled in a rather graceful way because there's a tremendous amount of guidance on the planet right now from the angelic realms, as well as from humans who are shining their light. That's what's keeping everything from totally blowing apart. The disruptions will continue, but they're a necessary part of this transformation of humanity right now. And the transformation eventually brings this planet to being the planet of light, the planet of love, the planet of realization. But there has to be a lot of house cleaning in the meantime. Those who are still obsessed with power, those who are afraid of their own light, those who still believe in suffering, those who believe in enslaving other people, whether it's energetically or physically. We have to clean house of all this, and it's not done with more battles. In other words, taking up causes. It's done with more quiet light from those who have it within and are willing to open it up and let it radiate to the planet.
Thank you. Can you tell us? I've never heard this concept. I think of the concept of silence speaking, which maybe is similar, but what is quiet light?
Quiet light is when you're not taking up arms or causes. You've all done that in the past, and you've done it well, but now's the time not to have that cause. You're not cause workers anymore. Other people will come in and take over the causes of working for the environment, for instance, which is essential. They'll take over the causes of helping to feed the hungry. They'll take over the causes of the imbalance between the sexes, the masculine, feminine, between the races. What happens so often, though, when somebody takes up a cause like that, the intention originally is good, but then it comes back to they become the power players, even with their righteous cause. And I've seen it happen time and time again where somebody starts out with good intentions and simply gets caught up in the power and control, and then with the added element of being totally righteous. The quiet light is where there's no agenda. You're not even saying we want the everybody on the planet to be rich, everybody on the planet to be happy. That's an agenda. The quiet light is what's put out there. It illuminates the potentials. That's all it does. It shows humans that maybe there are higher level choices to make in their own lives or in their communities or as a planet. It shines the light in the potentials that may have been hidden in the past, and that's all we're here to do right now, is to shine that light, the potential of light body versus AI body. And not saying one is better or worse, but at least open those potentials. So we were truly that light, which is consciousness, is simply broadening the spectrum and the realization that there's much more out there than just physical reality. There are so many realities and dimensions, but they're all still right inside.
Thank you. Since I am in the fishbowl of this reality, I must admit at this point, I don't know what are the questions to ask you for consciousness or for our highest good. So if I gave the mic to you and said, what is the most important things to impart on us or seeds to plant with us, what would those be right now?
The biggest thing I can say, and I underline it 3 times, is simply to allow. Simply to allow. You get caught up in your mind so often, you overthink things, and all you're doing is solidifying the gravity that's all around you. All you're doing is getting yourself deeper into the quicksand. The way that has been talked about since the time of the Essenes and the time of Yeshua, the way has always been to allow the natural integration of divinity into this reality. You can't force it. You really can't even study it. You cannot discipline yourself into it. Going on some type of fasting or diet or some sort of daily rituals does not help one bit. I ask you with the greatest amount of compassion and wisdom to let all those things go now. Everything you thought you should be doing because you heard that something was bad for you, or you heard that you had to do this discipline, you had to do sweat lodges. And I'm not saying any of those are bad, but it's easy to get caught up in them. Now you're distracted. Now you're no longer nearly as effective as you can be simply by taking a deep breath and realizing that this is all natural. You're simply in the divine flow, the divine kind of a mechanism of your own soul coming to realization in this lifetime. You can't think your way into it. You can't work your way into it. You can simply allow it. That was the greatest message, I think, from the Essenes to the Gnostics into the mystery schools that has been often forgotten, often overlooked. The rituals of the churches, the rituals of the New Age. I got kicked out of Sedona for being clear. The rituals of the New Age, none of those are truly effective. If you're here on this planet at this time to be a bringer of consciousness, you take a deep breath, you relax, and you allow. And then it comes forth, not because you're thinking about it, not because you're praying for it, not because you're doing daily rituals. It's because it is your natural state of being. And it's why you chose to be on her earth right now.
I've heard it said, I've said it, that we won the lottery by getting to be here at this time. Are we very special is a strange way, and that can have egoic terms, but did we win the cosmic lottery and choose to come here at this time where humanity is going through this awakening process?
I wouldn't call it a lottery so much as you knew you wanted to be here and you pushed and shoved your way into it, pushing everybody else aside. Many of you chose really bad families just to be able to be here, and now you're paying the price for that. But yeah, you wanted to be here. You were determined. Your passion was so strong that you slipped in to a family that they never thought they'd have children, or thought they'd be too old to bear children, or had already had 3 or 4, never going to have any more. You found a way of slipping in. You were determined to be here more than anything else. You fought for it. And then once you got here, you wondered what the hell you were doing.
Yes. I like to leave people on very hopeful notes, because that energy to me is everything. Are there signs we can see? Because the future is not written in stone. There are probabilities. Are there signs that we can see in 2024 or beyond where we can go, I see it, a glimmer of hope. This is telling me that, yes, we are on track as humanity. We are heading to the singularity. Something great is coming.
There's going to be many, many signs along the way, but each one is going to be a kind of a mini breakthrough on their own. In 2024, you're going to see breakthroughs, or mini breakthroughs in the scheme of things, in agriculture, for instance, in the ability to produce healthy, vital foods without all the chemicals, enough food to feed the planet. Obviously, breakthroughs in technology, breakthroughs in some very old conflicts between countries. And the Middle East is not necessarily going to be a place. They're going to struggle for a while yet. This is the epicenter of old versus new, of old religious concepts, of God concepts. And they're holding on like hell. I mean, no pun intended. They're holding on to their concept of a God. But eventually that will break. It will no longer be tolerated by humanity to have an angry God, a divisive God, and gods that are so very different from one religion to the next. You're going to see, in a kind of a quiet way, you're going to continue to see a lot of people still suffering and unhappy, or very unawakened, very still much asleep. But you as individuals are going to start seeing more and more people like yourself that are awakened. You'll just know it. The moment you see them, you won't even have to engage in a conversation. You're going to start seeing more and more awakened people. And some of you have lamented in the past is there's just nobody else. The whole world's asleep, but you're going to start seeing it in more and more people. And there's just more light coming into the planet.
You mentioned hell. Is there hell?
There is no place of hell. There is the hell that you put yourself into, the karma that oftentimes carries over from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. The hell is truly forgetting who you are, and then trying to suffer your way back into remembering. I would say that is the hell. And karma is one of those things. It's like a merry-go-round. You can get off at any time you want. Now, some religions will tell you, oh, no, you have to pay your karmic debt. No, you don't. Anytime you want, I'm done with karma. Stop the merry-go-round. I'm getting off now. So it's very easy. Yes. The human biology is changing very quickly with the new light that's coming to the planet. And some of the issues that have been affecting the planet for a while, including particularly cancer, diabetes, some of the big ones, and now dementia, there's going to be huge breakthroughs in these areas. But the question is, are humans really ready to live longer? And I'm not being facetious. Everybody says, of course, I want to live forever. No, you really don't. The counter side is that we're looking at going, particularly in the next few years, your physical health gets better. You live longer. Things like heart disease are not nearly as much of an issue. But now, on the other side of that are mental issues, mental health. You can live a long time with an improved biology, improved through science. But what about the balance of the mind? That's a bigger issue to me right now than any medical issue, is the balance in the mind. Why stay here on the planet? Even if you have a relatively healthy body, why stay if you have depression, you have dementia, Alzheimer's, you're out of touch with yourself. The more light that comes in right now to the planet is going to help balance that. The Calder stops me. He doesn't like some of the things I say, but I'm going to say it, that the psychologists and psychiatrists on the planet have no clue, no real clue as to the mind, human nature, and especially not the consciousness. It's going to take a deep understanding of consciousness to understand how the mind and the brain work and why things like depression occur in the first place. But they're a long way from that. And hopefully, with the infusion of light, there'd be a much better understanding of the real issue, and that's the mental health.
Thank you. That goes along if we're talking about longevity. How's the Earth doing?
Gaia is leaving. And I like to joke about it. Gaia got pissed off and she's on her way out. Gaia is an entity, is like almost like a ascended master in a way. Her responsibility was to bring life force to the planet and to nurture the planet, not only the animal species, the fairy kingdom, and these other things, but the humans. Her job is done. Humans have to take responsibility for the planet now. She's departing. At first, the departure looked like it would take a couple hundred years. Now it'll be done within 20 or 30 years. That's why you're seeing such an extreme focus on the environment right now. And you could arguably global warming, but it's really more of a global consciousness, an understanding of nature and what it is, eventually an understanding of what energy is. Humans are being forced to now look at their environment and to care for it. And as they do, that goes to the next step. They have to look at themselves, not only nurturing nature, but nurturing self. Gaia's departure is a good thing. It's happening faster than what we originally thought, but it's now time for humans to take responsibility for their energy and their consciousness.
Thank you. Any last words, Adamus, you would like to share with people or to share with this specific audience today?
Yes, I do. And again, addressing everybody, but more focused on those of you who came in to be the bringers of consciousness onto the planet. You thought you were on this journey for your enlightenment or your realization. Uh, Most of you, many of you had discovered you were already realized. You just didn't realize it. It's not, realization is not what you would have thought it to be. Suddenly you're not, it's not about manifesting gold out of stones or things like that. The alchemy was an intentional distraction. We were trying to clear people off the path. So we intentionally distracted them with the turning stone into gold. The fact is you came here with a purpose and a passion. You love this planet. You love humanity. You also realize that all of your past lives right now, dating back to the very first of them in Lemuria or Atlantis, they exist. They didn't just go away. They exist, and the very work that you're doing right now on the planet is affecting every one of those past lives because they're still here on the planet. So you're having a tremendous influence as the designated ascendee of your own past life lineage, as well as the planet. This planet eventually is going to evolve to be the place of enlightenment, the place of love, and the place of true consciousness and energy working together. It was always a theory that eventually consciousness and energy would merge as one. Right now, they're not. They're very, very separate. Consciousness contains no energy whatsoever. It was a dream that we had, part of the Atlantean dream, but it was a dream, like far, far, far into the future. Now, what we're seeing is that has the very high potential to happen between now and the year 2050. The integration, the fusing together of consciousness and energy.
Forgive me, not trying to keep going here, but what is consciousness then?
A consciousness is not a force. Consciousness is simply awareness. I exist. I exist. That's the greatest statement that one could make. The realization, I exist. regardless if I'm in physical body or out of it, you exist. You always will. You always have been. You were not birthed as a souled being somewhere, and you will not cease to exist. If you really feel into that, let it resonate from within you. I exist. That is the miracle. Now, how do you choose to experience that? How do you choose to experience? You could do it by coming to Earth and leading lives here. You could do it off in the other realms. You can create your own realms and dimensions, but it's all about I exist. I am that I am.
And last but not least, I've got to ask, because I know my wife will be asking when she wakes up, is there anything that you want to share for our family, for myself, for her, for the baby, for any of us? And if not, that's okay too.
No, I would. And again, your journey, your reason for being here right now, was very, very clear. You made a commitment, and I referred before to your times in the mystery schools, where you both knew each other before, by the way. Uh, and you said you wanted to be here at this time. You didn't know how you were going to get here, how it was going to work out, but you knew no matter what, even if you were greatly distracted, even if you had moments where you almost didn't stay on the planet, you were going to do it. You're doing it, and please don't doubt yourself. Please understand what you're doing is bringing in a tremendous amount of light at a time where it's really needed, and go with your own flow. Allow yourself to be more abundant, please. Please allow yourself to be very abundant. It's it's natural. An unnatural state is having to work for abundance. Let it flow. It's right there. And it'd be doing your family a great favor as well.
Thank you. I had a dream last night where I won 330, specifically $330 billion.
Yeah, that'll do you good. Yes. Yeah, and it's related to the abundance thing. And it's not that you won it, you earned it, you deserve it. For in order for your work to go forward, you're going to need the abundance, the finances for it to move to the next level. They're going to be there, but don't push them away. Don't feel embarrassed about it. Let it flow.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been such an honor and a privilege. I cannot thank you enough, and I'll say master. So thank you, master.
Thank you, and it was an honor to be here with you. I knew I would be. Caldera wasn't so sure that I would be coming through, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world. So, with that, I'll sign off, and we'll be bringing Caldera, Geoffrey back in just a moment. With that, I am that I am, Adamus of Sovereign Domain. Thank you.
So much love.
So with that, please just be with that good deep breath, letting those energies flow, opening to all that you are, feeling into the beauty of this moment. Take that good deep breath, flow with it. Breathe the I am that I am. I exist. Take that good deep breath, grounding yourself, allowing yourself to be truly present. Breathe for you. Breathe and feel into you.
I think I'm back. And I apologize. It seemed that Adamus talked forever and ever and ever.
This was beautiful, and I had a light go out in the studio. I don't even know how a digital light goes out. Obviously, there's something behind it just a few minutes ago. And maybe people see it on camera. That was, I think, a sign from the universe that let's get Geoffrey some rest and get Geoffrey back here.
No, I totally enjoyed it. Loved it. And what I really stood out was I felt that connection between you and Saint Germain. Very, very strong and deep connection. Really came through.
Well, thank you. I know you hadn't planned on channeling today, and you said, well.
Yeah. Adamus was going to make sure it happened.
So thank you so much. So where can people go to find your work, to find the Crimson Circle, to find everything that you have to offer, that you do, all of it?
It's real simple, crimsoncircle.com. crimson, like the color crimson, circle.com. And gosh, we've got an extensive library going back 20 plus years. We do a monthly webcast, first Saturday of every month. It's all free. There's a tremendous amount of stuff on there. There's some courses, if you want to go to some of the other levels, but tremendous amount of free information on there.
Fantastic.
And we just put out something. Adamus challenged us about a year ago. He said, I want you to distill all the teachings over the past 20-some years into 21 key points. And it took a long time. It was very hard to do, but we put it out recently. It's called 21 Shaumbra Realizations. It's on YouTube. We put it to music and video, and it's also a PDF you can download free of charge.
And I'll put the link there. I'll put the link both to YouTube. I'll put the link
Thank
to the
you.
PDF you'd like. And I was watching that this morning. It's beautiful. It's not just that it's 21 points. It is beautiful. It's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, we've got an amazing team here that we do everything in-house, and we put together the videos. That one is beautiful, and it's simple. It's 8 minutes long or something. I forgot. Not real long, but we distilled everything into 21 key points. Things like one of my favorites is suffering is for fools and clergy. And it addresses what you talked to Adamus about with suffering, but it's just 21 very distilled points. It'd take you 5-10 minutes to read it. But I love it because it goes into so much depth. And if you want to know what Crimson Circle is all about, take a look at that.
Thank you. And then any last words you want to share with us today, Jeff?
There are times when this journey and the work are that it's really, really tough at times because we're going against mass consciousness. We're defying gravity in so many ways. But I would ask, don't give up. Don't get dismayed. I know there's days that are really tough, but take a deep breath and remember why we're all here right now at this, what Adamus calls the time of machines. Understand that it's a passion of ours, and allow the energies to flow like Adamus told you. Let yourself be abundant and joyful. That's the real way we get this work done. We've got a lot in front of us, a lot of light bringing for this planet, but make sure you're healthy and abundant. And when you have those distracting or doubtful days, just take a deep breath. Remember, you're not alone. You've got a global community of people that are here doing the same thing.
This was amazing, and I can't thank you enough. I got to do an official ending to the show, and then but this has been beautiful. I cannot thank you enough. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun. The inner work is to crank your light to the max and have fun while you're here. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Jeff, this was amazing. Wow, 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 wow. I don't have enough wows for how special this interview is, how special meeting again Adamus St Germain was, and how important that message is of going to our divine inner light. And on that note, if you want to join the School of Mystics, if you want to come to a place where we're going to help you crank your light to the max, click on that link to the School of Mystics down below. We meet 4 Wednesdays each month and help you to be the light, to shine the light, to open up the light, to imbue, embody, and breathe the light with everything that you have. And if you'd like a simple step before that, we can give you a daily attunement of light by simply clicking that link below and going to dailywoohoo.com. We'll bring you energy up and bring you into the light each and every day. And if you want to channel Ascendant Masters, if you want to channel angels, if you want to channel guides, if you want to channel elders, ancestors, or loved ones on the other side of the veil, simply go, it's the link down below, to automaticwriting.com. So here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you guys so much, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love, everyone.